Clyburn has been pushing a candidate, Childs, who spent a significant amount of time as a labor lawyer fighting unions. I don't know. That's
and representing companies who were the subject of discrimination complaints, not the people making the discrimination complaints, the companies. So the left and the people who are actually talking about, there's these three candidates that are mostly being discussed. Unlike what the right tries to portray, we are actually talking about the substance of their qualifications.
Right.
But they want to pretend that that's not the case because it's an easy straw man and it's an easy way to drum up racial resentment. If you got a job or you lost your job as a white person and you feel like, oh, it's because my company has to make these racial quotas, etc. That's easy chum for them since there's no obscure way they can say this is too close to an election. I mean, this is what they've settled on.
Yeah, no, just in sum total, it is. I actually want to start back with Jim Clyburn. We don't just want any black woman. Black people don't want just any black woman. Candace Owens is a black woman. We'll pass. We want somebody who's going to fight for liberation. And so therefore, we're going to go down their qualifications. And I don't care if it's Jim Clyburn's great niece. I don't care. We'll fight him, especially if they're anti-union, anti-labor, if they have a history. Oh, I'd love that fight. We're ready for it.
What's fascinating is that Clyburn has chosen to basically make an issue. The two other, we should say, the two other candidates, Ketanji Brown Jackson and Leandra Kruger, both, and I cannot remember, they're both Ivy League grads in terms of law school. One is Harvard, one is Yale. I can't remember which is which. And so Clyburn is making his case that Michelle Childs represents a break from this. I mean, it's which is true, helpful, but not quite really the point. I mean, how does Clyburn get away with this type of posturing?
Oh, he's had the benefit of being the misleadership, the face of misleadership from the black community. See, there's always going to, I don't really want to lay waste to Jim Clyburn this afternoon. I didn't really come to do that. But I mean, there are always people like him who are eager to facilitate a particular type of blackness. But Jim Clyburn has been very efficacious at stopping a liberation style of blackness. So he has a form of blackness, but he denies the progressive power thereof.
Well, I mean, and it just the same people who are pushing, or well, Clyburn's pushing for this woman Childs, but so is Lindsey Graham, and so is Tim Scott, I believe. I mean, that says pretty much everything.
Well, and we should be clear, she's I think a circuit court judge in South Carolina. So I mean, that's the home court advantage there. But it's also going to be interesting to see how this implicates the possible leadership fight. I mean, there's a piece, I think, in the LA Times this week that, and I don't know, it's hard for me to imagine that Pelosi is going to stick around to not be the leader of what will probably be the minority in the House, but could theoretically, she could be speaker again, theoretically, but hard to imagine that she just wants to be a member of the caucus. And this piece is talking about a three-way race between Steny Hoyer, Clyburn, and Hakeem Jeffries, which seems to me to be set up to really deliver it to Hakeem Jeffries.
Yes.
Because the other two, I don't know how old Steny Hoyer is, but Clyburn's also in his 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, what the...
Yeah, no, and Steny Hoyer is obviously not going to be Speaker of the House. I mean, he's had a relatively distinguished career, but he's been kind of a if you've ever gone to a live event with Steny Hoyer, he's a liability when he speaks. He doesn't
huge amount of corporate money. Nancy Pelosi's not exactly like, your best foot forward too if you want to have someone communicate anything.
But I think that's why, I think they're drawing that contrast. Like, you couldn't possibly put They're trying to make it a generational fight. You can't put Clyburn and Steny Hoyer next to Hakeem Jeffries and not kind of institute a generational style fight. But again, I've been following Hakeem Jeffries long enough to understand that everyone who's close to our age doesn't have our age's best interest at heart.
Right, yeah. Right. But I just wonder if Clyburn loses this fight, what kind of implications it would have on a leadership fight in that scenario. But
well, one thing to that, though, I think that they're playing politics as usual, and they don't really see. Do you think they see the shellacking that's coming their way? Like, they might need to consider clearing out all of the leadership, because once the Republicans are done. No, once the Democrats are done destroying themselves, I think we're going to have a real clean slate. I don't think they're going to survive what's coming up in the midterms.
I mean, they're just like this commitment to these same old people in leadership. And like, you've talked about this, Sam, this belief in themselves as the only people who have knowledge. I mean, the narcissism of it. We are the only ones fit to lead and steward the party through this time. And really what it is just they're clinging to power as the base of the party has been banging on the doors and trying to break them down for new ways of doing things. And yet the leadership is lagging to such a degree that it's like a very jarring and an uncomfortable tension there. I don't know how long they can. I mean, Pelosi seems to just want to do it indefinitely. She's running again. Blows my mind, but
it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And then, of course, this is also the same problem we had with Breyer. And now we're looking at a situation where there is no working majority in the Democratic caucus in the Senate. We're hoping that that Lujan, senator from New Mexico, just had a stroke, recovers quick enough before someone else has a stroke in the Democratic Senate caucus. But it really is nuts.